Everwind is not a game that forgives those playing on autopilot. The more you understand the mechanics, the more the game opens up, revealing shortcuts, combinations, and tricks that make all the difference in battle and exploration. So today, I've put together 10 advanced tips you need to know to get the most out of Everwind, master the hidden systems, and play like a true veteran. I'm Matthew, and the video starts now. If there's one thing I learned early on, and it will save you hours of frustration, it's that your airship's core isn't just a cosmetic detail. It is literally the backbone of your adventure. When I started ignoring core upgrades, thinking I'd focus on combat first, I got stuck on the same islands for far too long. Don't make that mistake. The first thing you need to do is interact with the ship's core to unlock increases in top speed, size, and most importantly, altitude. This last one is the game changer. Without enough altitude, the most dangerous and rewarding islands high above remain completely out of reach, as if they existed in a different game. To increase altitude, you'll need to farm two specific things: Mortivar skulls, which drop from the basic skeletons found on the lower islands, and force crystal dust. With these materials in hand, you can install the extra balloon and the extra power generator in the core, and then the entire map opens up to you in a way that feels like the game has truly begun. Without these two components installed, you literally cannot reach the upper islands, period. And believe me, what awaits up there in terms of loot, enemies, and secrets is worth every second of farming the low islands. So before anything else, make the airship core your #1 priority. One of the things that impressed me most about Everwind was realizing that the game heavily rewards those who think before they act. And when I finally invested in the engineer tree and unlocked area scan along with life detection, the way I explored changed completely. This combination is basically a professional radar, and it reaches up to half a mile away. What you do is simple. Every time you arrive at a new island, hold the right mouse button and let the scan run. Within seconds, the game highlights all points of interest, hidden creatures, and treasures in the area. It seems like a small thing, but it's the kind of information that separates those who explore with confidence from those who keep getting ambushed. Combine this with the spyglass in R mode before landing, and you can check from a distance if the island has already been explored or if there are still secrets waiting. On the high islands, where enemies are much more aggressive and ambushes happen in seconds, this prior reconnaissance isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's estimated that this combination eliminates around 90% of bad surprises on the upper islands. That's no exaggeration. I've arrived at dangerous islands fully prepared simply because the scan showed me exactly where the enemy groups were before I even set foot on the ground. So if you haven't unlocked area scan and life detection in the engineer tree yet, stop what you're doing and go after that right now. One thing Everwind doesn't make very clear right away is that you won't be able to unlock all skill trees on a single character until level 40. When I first realized this, I was worried I had messed up my build, and then I discovered respec potions, and all that anxiety vanished instantly. These potions are sold within the game itself, so there's no excuse for staying stuck in a build that isn't working for you. The strategy I liked most was starting as a warrior in the early stages, high survivability, solid damage, perfect for learning the game's rhythm, and then resetting everything to go full arcanist once I knew the systems better. The result was completely different, like playing a brand new game. In co-op, this mechanic becomes even more interesting. You can literally change roles in the middle of the campaign depending on what the team needs at the moment. Need support? Reset? Need more damage? Reset. It's a level of flexibility that few games offer as accessibly as Everwind does here. So my advice is experiment with builds without any fear. There are no permanent decisions here, and that is liberating. The game was clearly designed for you to test hybrid combinations and find the style that suits you best, and respect potions are proof of that. Take advantage of this freedom because not every RPG is this generous. If there was a moment I looked at the screen and thought, this changes everything, it was when I equipped Lifesteal and Battle Feast on my main weapon at the same time. Before that, I'd enter long dungeons with an inventory full of food and come out barely hanging on. After that, I hardly needed to stop to rest. The process starts at the processing station, where you combine MOA fragments, 5 small ones, make a medium, and so on, to process enchanted gear and extract the right runes. Lifesteal heals 2% of the damage you deal, and Battle Feast returns 5 stamina per kill. In practice, the more you attack and kill, the more you heal, and the more you can keep attacking. It's a self-sustaining cycle in long dungeons. This combination transforms what would be an exhausting run into a smooth ride. You no longer need to manage food every 2 floors or retreat to recover stamina before every group of enemies. The combat rhythm becomes fluid in a way that other builds simply can't replicate. And there's more. The Doom rune deserves a special mention here because it practically trivializes weak mob camps. If you're clearing low islands to farm materials, equip Doom and become a cleaning machine. Combining these 3 runes, depending on the context, is the kind of flexibility you only discover when you really dive into Everwind's enchantment system. I'll be honest with you, when I discovered this combination on the warrior, I spent a few seconds staring at the screen, unable to believe what had happened. Because in theory, nobody expects a warrior, a class known for charging headfirst into a fight, to have a stealth build that borders on broken. But Everwind delivered exactly that. The secret lies in going deep into the stealth line and unlocking Shadow Cloak, Backstab, and Ambush, combining it all with Throat Slice. While crouching, you become completely invisible, and when you attack by surprise, your damage doubles, a 100% bonus on top of your base damage. That would already be strong, but the chance of a one-shot on any normal mob elevates this build to another level entirely. The practical result is that you can clear an entire island in about 30 seconds if you play well. Enter stealthily, position yourself, and execute them one by one before any alarm is triggered. There's no enemy reaction, no groups forming against you, no drain on stamina or health. It's surgical cleaning. It's worth noting that this doesn't work on bosses or elites. These enemies have their own mechanics that ignore the one-shot, so don't expect to dominate the hardest content with stealth alone. But for clearing camps, farming islands, and advancing through the map with maximum efficiency, this build is probably the most powerful one the warrior has access to in the game today. Try it out and tell me if you weren't as shocked as I was. The Arcanist is one of the most rewarding classes in the game, but only if you follow the right order for unlocking elements. When I tried picking elements randomly, thinking it would work fine, the damage was just okay. When I went in the correct order, fire, ice, lightning, and then poison, things got absurd. The real magic happens when you combine wild magic with adaptation and magic mirror in the same build. Wild magic is risky, because it can give you 50% more damage or 25% less. But with adaptation, you gain a full second of immunity to the last element you used, which solves a large part of the risk. And Magic Mirror, reflecting enemy projectiles back, some fights become a joke. In practice, your staffs turn into heavy artillery. You cycle through elements in sequence, stack status bonuses on enemies, and use wild magic to boost the right moments. It's the kind of rotation that looks complicated on paper, but becomes intuitive quickly once you get the timing of the elements down. The only real point of concern here is staff durability. 50 uses per weapon. In intense combat sessions, I've seen a staff break faster than I expected, so always keep at least one spare in your inventory before entering a long dungeon. With that sorted, an Arcanist played this way is undoubtedly one of the most satisfying experiences Everwind has to offer. There are builds that work well, and then there are builds that make you feel unfair toward the enemies. Parry Master combined with Focus on the Warrior is clearly the latter. When I first put this combination together and understood its rhythm, bosses that used to give me trouble turned into practice sessions. And I'm not exaggerating. The mechanics are elegant. You take Parry Master along with agile parrying to ensure your parries are reliable and timed, and then Focus kicks in, which activates an extra damage bonus after 15 to 45 seconds of not taking a hit. A well-executed parry stuns the enemy for a few seconds, and it's exactly in this window that Focus explodes in damage. The mob stays still, you unleash everything, and repeat the cycle. Against bosses, this is devastating because most of them have attack patterns readable enough for you to build a consistent parry rotation. You stop reacting to the boss and start dictating the pace of the fight, which is a completely different feeling from any other warrior build. It also works well against hordes, because a successful parry on one group can create a window long enough to clear several enemies while they are still stunned. The only real requirement for this build is patience to learn the timings. The first few minutes playing like this feel uncomfortable because you have to resist the urge to attack first and wait for the parry moment. But when it clicks and you land the perfect sequence, this build delivers one of the most satisfying combat experiences in Everwind. It's worth every second of practice. One thing Everwind doesn't teach in an obvious way is that your airship's layout matters much more than it seems. I spent a long time with stations thrown onto the deck any which way, and when I finally organized everything logically, the difference in efficiency was immediate. Proper positioning isn't just about aesthetics, it's about functionality. The configuration that works best is placing the generator on top of the core, creating an overhanging one-block platform for the balloon, and installing the furnace along with the smithing station on the deck in sequence. With this layout, you create a natural workflow, collect the ore, melt it in the furnace into ingots, and immediately work on the smithing station without running all over the airship. And speaking of melting, never use raw ore directly in recipes. Always process it into ingots first, because the yield and final results are completely different. With this efficient pipeline, your crafting goal should be the mechanical longsword, 35 to 40 base damage with 750 endurance. These numbers put this weapon in a different league compared to anything you can get before it. It is literally the ceiling of physical endgame for the warrior, and reaching it earlier changes the pace of your entire progression. I know it seems like a lot of work to set up this layout at first while you're still learning the airship systems, but this is exactly the investment that separates those who evolve quickly from those who get bogged down in the intermediate stages. Organize your deck, establish this production flow, and go after the mechanical longsword. When you equip that sword for the first time, you'll understand exactly why this tip is on this list. This is the kind of trick that seems obvious after someone shows it to you, but that you'd never discover on your own without wasting unnecessary hours traveling. When I learned to use the compass, jump, and teleport together to loot islands, my exploration speed practically doubled. It's simple, efficient, and completely changes how you approach the map. The technique works like this. You fly the airship over the island you want to loot, jump from a height into the water near the shore, and the ship stops automatically and waits for you there. Then you go onto the island, loot everything you need at your own pace, and when you're done, hold the right button on the compass to teleport back to the deck instantly. No swimming back, no searching for where the ship parked, no time wasted. What makes this even more valuable is that you avoid unnecessary combat that only exists because you approach the island the wrong way. In many situations, direct confrontation with enemy groups isn't worth the wear and tear. You lose items, stamina, and maybe die and lose loot. With this method, you get in, get what you need, and get out before most enemies even realize what happened. In long farming sessions, this saves an incredible amount of time that you'll feel accumulating over hours of gameplay. Everwind has a massive map with islands scattered at all altitudes, and every minute saved on travel is an extra minute spent exploring, crafting, or progressing. Once you incorporate this habit into your exploration routine, it will be impossible to imagine how you played without it before. Stamina is one of the most underrated resources in Everwind, especially in the late game when fights get long and escapes need to be fast. I learned this the hard way, standing in the middle of a storm, with no campfire, no stamina, and enemies surrounding me. After that, I never left without at least 5 extra logs in my inventory, and my quality of life in the game changed completely. The first step is to unlock Athlete in the Engineer tree, which eliminates 100% of the stamina cost for sprinting. This in itself is transformative, but what makes the build really work is the combination that follows. Cooked food before combat, an active campfire to maintain buffs, and the lifesteal rune on your main weapon. These 3 elements together create a sustainability system that feeds back into itself. During any prolonged fight, the 5 extra logs in your inventory are for a very specific but frequent situation: storms. When a storm arrives and puts out your fire, you need to relight it immediately because without the campfire buff, your sustainability drops significantly. It's a small detail that most people ignore until they're caught off guard at a critical moment. The final result of this combination is that long fights and desperate escapes stop being panic situations and become controllable ones. You sprint without a second thought, you last longer in combat without needing to retreat to recover stamina, and you have an answer for almost anything the game throws at you. In Everwind's late game, managing stamina well is literally the difference between surviving and not surviving.